And we are back. Welcome to Legacy Tour Huntsville. This is round 2.
Oh, yeah.
Feature match has James Hess on the right playing Elves, playing against Dan Williams on Temur Delver. I'm joined by my co-host Drake Sasser.
Oh, yeah.
And did you see who won the die roll? Sorry, I wasn't watching.
I was not able to see who won the die roll. We'll see here in a second.
We'll see that soon enough.
Yeah, who opens.
All right, we've got the deck lists in front of us. You've got James and I've got Dan's.
This list seems pretty, I don't know. It seems normally standard. He is playing 61 cards, which is a little off to me. I don't know why you would be motivated to do that.
Just like Dan won the die roll.
All right, cool. And he's playing 4 of Natural Order, Green Sun, Zenith, and Glimpse. Usually see them go down to 3 of one of those. So, I don't know, maybe he just wanted to be jam-packed, full of threats. I actually don't know why he would play 61 cards, but...
So James is leading out on a Green Sun Zenith.
Good old
Dan
for 0.
No Spell Pierce. So this should be a Dryad Arbor.
He's gonna... Looks like he's gonna brainstorm, I assume, after, because, yeah, he's not responding.
Yep. It's an end-of-turn brainstorm. Can't really see his hand.
Yeah, I assume he must be looking for lands or something. Usually you see them wait. I don't. Maybe not Delver decks, but usually you wait with Brainstorm, see if you can get like a fetch off with it. You know, get the perfect Brainstorm. But usually, I mean, especially with Temur Delver, you want to be leading with a turn 1 threat and then proceed with, you know, the mana denial strategy.
Yeah, since we can't see their hand, this actually kind of implies that he didn't have a Ponder either, because I think that would probably be better for a turn 1 play. He does have the Wasteland, however, to take out the Dryad Arbor.
Which is good. Like I said, you need, but he needs a threat to really back this up. Otherwise, you know, you can only mana denial for so long, especially against a mono green deck. You know, there's very little to stifle. And well, there's a fetch.
Looked to me like James had the second Dryad Arbor in his hand.
Right. Which Dryad Arbor as a land actually isn't great in this matchup because he can kind of keep the mana denial strategy with, like, if he finds like a lightning bolt, he can just shoot it at his land and 1 mana Stone Rain him. It gives him another way to, you know, keep him off mana, which against Elves, you know, once they start resolving Elves, shouldn't be too much of a problem for them. But here in the early game where he's like playing Visionaries and, you know, not Elves that produce mana, that can be a big problem.
Another thing worth noting here, we saw that in James's list he's not running a main deck Llanowar Elves or Elvish Mystic, so he's actually a little shy on some of the mana producing elves. He does have a second Birchlore Rangers, which I don't believe is the norm. I think they usually only play 1 and then have 4 of the what's it called, Heritage Druid.
Yeah, he only has 3 Heritage Druid. That's a little interesting. That
so
card
swapped 1 for the other.
Especially now, especially since he's at 4 glimpses, you know, Heritage Druid works really well with the glimpses, being able to just keep going.
Right, chain them.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting to see him cut down on those. But
anyway, we've got another brainstorm. This time also end step. So he actually only saw what 2 new cards off of that, because he would have drawn 1 for his turn, but still appears to have no threat and no fetch land.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't get a threat going here soon, like, he's just going to be out of the game. You know, everything he's doing really revolves around the first couple turns. And, you know, if he just keeps allowing his opponent to play lands and not actually pressuring him at all, he's going to have a very hard time.
Yeah,
you
so
know, keeping up.
There you can see off the Gitaxian Probe, James does have the second Dryad Arbor in hand. He's also got a Gaia's Cradle, Wirewood Symbiote, Glimpse, Craterhoof Behemoth, and a Wooded Foothills?
Mm-hmm. You know, it actually doesn't seem like his hand does very much, though. Because, you know, he has Craterhoof in hand, which is great. He's got Glimpse, which is another good combo piece. But, like, he doesn't have any Elves to really start going off with. He has, like, the Wirewood Symbiote. He can do the Visionary thing
Visionary trick, yeah.
But, you know, if he has a Bolt, he just kind of shuts that down. He's stuck with a bunch of lands. Which, I mean, is good because, you know, he's not Dan's not exactly pressuring him. But, you know...
looks like Dan did find a fetch land, so maybe we'll see, like, a Tarmogoyf for Nimble Mongoose. So there could be that he just didn't have a blue threat and was stuck with only
the green threats with a blue land.
And only having volcanic, because he didn't fetch turn 1, so he isn't starting off with the correct colored mana. Maybe we'll see what he does.
Like I said, I still think Dan has a lot of time to get going because his hands.
Yeah, there it is.
James just has all lands pretty
And
much.
he's not at threshold yet, right? He's only got 1, 2, looks like 5 cards in the graveyard, so it's just a little goose for now. Didn't see what he drew, but he's leading off with the glimpse, so should follow up with what, Wirewood Symbiote?
Wirewood Symbiote, that'll get him a card. But he's still gonna draw pretty well here. He doesn't have extra mana to work with. And as a result, like any dazes that Dan may still have in his hand, because Dan has a bunch of cards and we still don't know them, he could have dazes and all kinds of stuff to
I saw he had
early.
another volcanic island in hand.
Okay.
So he's found a, yep, there it
Looks
is.
like he's got a proxy too, I can't read.
Yeah, I think that's the volcanic.
Oh, is it? I think we have a Spell Pierce? Oh, a Lightning Bolt. Is he trying to target the symbiote after it resolves? Okay.
So there should be... Yeah, he hasn't passed priority yet, so actually that bolt can't resolve. So James is actually utilizing the knowledge here by playing his Gaia's Cradle and producing mana before giving or passing priority again. So that's a little bit of a slip up there. That's gonna probably cost him some. Yeah, because James is still at a full 7 card hand now.
For what it's worth, like I said, I still don't think he drew too much. But yeah, I think you definitely should have bolted the Visionary and not given him an extra, essentially 2 cards because of the Glimpse and the Visionary itself. It looks like he found a copy of
Ponder, and that'll also hit threshold, right? The goose,
yeah, because the lightning bolt. The goose is
see another lightning bolt there.
Looks like 2 lands. I don't think you should keep that Ponder. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be playing lands here now that you are down to a few turns. I think a Wasteland here would be really, really good. You know, hitting Gaia's Cradle. Once again, you can try to keep him off of mana because he still doesn't have mana producing elves. So Wasteland, I think, is a very live draw.
Obviously, lightning bolts and fork bolts are good.
More threats.
Yeah, Delver would be
super
nice.
Important. Yeah. But lands are definitely not the ticket here.
Sort of the namesake creature. We're what 3 or 4 turns in, hasn't made an appearance.
Let's see. Looks like
players confirming lifetime.
Yeah, I assume there was a. I mean, the life totals are kept track of.
Shown on screen.
Yeah, down here.
19 to 17, and I think we've had what 1 fetch land and we get taxing probe. I think they're correct still.
That looks correct because the G-taxing probe.
We'll get that. Yep, there's the bolt.
I see. Get in there. Is there merit, you think, to attacking first?
See if
he blocks?
There's
or do you want the damage here?
There's no cost to blocking first, because I think the likelihood of James blocking is super slim. But if he does, that's just free value, right? Like
yeah, it does. I mean, and aggressively bolting the Visionary like that keeps his Gaia's Cradle from tapping for mana, which there once again are merits to that because Daze is now a much better card.
Right. Okay. So now he's dazing to try and eat up his mana, which I guess the assumption is he may not have another land drop.
So I think he's going to play. Yeah, he can. Well, he knows the Dryad Arbor still in his hand, so he's going to play Dryad Arbor for turn, and then his Gaia's Cradle not taps for mana. That doesn't leave him in that.
Well, he can also. I was going to say he can still tap a regular. He play a regular land because he can cast another elf and draw a card first.
That probably does the same thing, but I don't know. Given that he's played 2 bolts, Dryad Arbor, I think it might be a little bit better. But we're about to see.
Well, this line gives him this exact out, where he now has mana producing elves.
I see.
The ability to produce mana with elves. Oy. And a pair of Quirion Rangers means he can now untap by bouncing a land. He can untap either the Quirion Ranger or the Birchlow Ranger.
Birchlow Ranger, right?
And produce yet another mana.
Looks like we have a fetch. I assume in response to the second Quirion Ranger, which I'm not sure.
Well, at this point, he shouldn't have priority. James already drew the card.
But the spell is still on the
unless
stack.
It hasn't resolved.
Yeah, the spell is still on the stack. Would be the thing.
Not sure. We'll see. I can't imagine this is a counter spell.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't spell pierce. Oh, he just passed back. I think he ran out of gas.
Okay. I assumed there was more to come, but maybe that's all there was. Well, let's see. Currently, assuming we get the Dryad Arbor next turn, that's 4 creatures, 5, 6, 7. He can actually hard cast a Crater Hoof next turn if he wants to. and it'll have
That seems rather good.
what plus that would be 5 creatures, so it'd be a 10/10 Crater Hoof plus at least one of the elves would be able to attack then. No, 2 if he bounces a land. That would be very lethal. Yeah, with only 16 life.
So he probably needs to find like a Force of Will. I mean, he definitely doesn't want more threats here, I don't think.
Yeah,
Wasteland is still good because once again you still hit Gaze Cradle, and that does something. I mean, he has mana producing elves now, which is tough, but he didn't find the Wasteland. And another Nimble Mongoose.
Second Mongoose isn't really going to do much in the face of a Crater Hoof. Now, if he has a counterspell, and James can only produce he can produce enough mana to pay through a daze. So it looks like the Crater Hoof will resolve unless
he has Force.
Unless Dan has Force of Will, sure.
Oof.
Or then there's this line. Yeah, never mind.
That's
more than enough mana for. And all the creatures are untapped. So yeah.
He's got.
Dan's got the Stifle trigger. Sure.
That seems rather good.
So now we've just got a 5/5. Now it does still have haste, right? It does. He could attack with it.
He can attack.
None of the other elves should attack, though. There are still 1/1s.
Right.
And Crater Hoof doesn't have trample naturally, right? It only grants it.
It has haste and it has the triggered ability. So I don't think he wants to attack here because if you can stop Temur Delver from attacking, I think you have the inevitability as the Elves player.
Oh, sure.
So I think you probably want to hold back on your Crater Hoof and just block if he swings into it, and just kind of cut down his creature count because this doesn't look good from the Temur Delver side of the table at all.
No, he got out of the gates far too slow, I think. I think at this point, James has such an upper hand. Even if his hand is mostly lands or something, something less than optimal, this is looking real bad for.
I mean, not having a turn 1 or 2 threat really makes your deck a lot worse as a Temur Delver deck.
Although Dan seems to disagree, sending in the clowns anyway.
I don't think you really want to do that. You can take a lot of damage next turn. Even having the Delvers back up, I still think you probably want to keep your Mongooses back.
Well, that turn 6 Delver, that's getting business, right?
I mean, even if it flips here, you're only getting.
And there's the Arbor, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8. Is this a second Crater Hoof?
Or a natural order. Or a second Crater Hoof, sure.
So that's in for. Yeah, that's definitely.
That seems very dead.
Well, there you have it. That's game 1. Looked pretty convincingly in James's favor, I'd say, from even the early turns with Dan being down a threat.
I mean, yeah, Temur Delver didn't come out the gates too hard if your win cons were hard cast 2 Crater Hoof Behemoths against a deck that's designed for mana denial. I think
we're
gonna says a lot about the
take
match.
a second here to talk about the sponsor of the event, the Legacy Tour. For this event, it was JC's House of Cards in Madison. JC's keeps a pretty stocked collection of Legacy staples from Dual Lands, Force of Wills, Tarmogoyfs, you name it. They also carry all the singles for Standard and Modern, any of the formats really. I'd say JC's probably has the best selection in the Huntsville area. They carry and everything else as well. If you're into Force of Will or any of the other
HeroClix, they do tabletop D&D as well. They do it all down there.
Yeah, in just a second here, we'll go to the sideboards. I've got Dan's main deck and sideboard list in front of me. It looks like you've got James's. So what do you like from James? What do you think he'll bring in? What do you think he'll take out?
Well, I think that Scavenging Ooze, is naturally really good. Being able to hit the graveyard is pretty important. It's a threat that's going to be bigger than most of theirs. There's not too terribly much. I mean, the Surgical doesn't seem to do much. Abrupt Decay doesn't hit a lot of their threats. I think your matchup main deck is mostly
I disagree. Abrupt Decay hits all but the Mongoose, right? I think we'll see.
But I don't think
for sure.
Your threats, but Tarmogoyfs in the ground, you're not too terribly concerned about, and the Delver in the air is probably the only thing that can kill you.
How do you feel about Elder Scale Worm? Is there any?
It seems a little large for what it does. I mean, it could be good because once again they're trying to pressure you with bolts. They're trying to finish.
Well, the thing is, it prevents all damage. So does Temur Delver actually have a way? I'll look quick. I don't know if they have a way to get rid of it. Well, I take it back. With Dan Williams having Submerges in the sideboard, he would have an answer to it. Yeah. But outside of Submerge, I don't believe he has any way to get out.
It just seems a little slow. It could be brought in. I don't hate it, but it does seem a little slow. But it can stop the game out.
We might see the Rurik Thar as well.
Rurik Thar, right, does the same thing, and it has reach too, so it can block Delvers.
Okay, so actually Rurik Thar might be a really good
that could be a strong one here. It seems a little awkward, but seems good.
From Dan's side, I think we'll see the Submerges. There was a pair of Rough and Tumbles. Both of those will probably come in, and the extra Fork Bolt.
What do you think of Dismember? He could like kill the critter from the stack. That could seem important. And I mean, if he has any idea what James is playing in the sideboard, he could combo with like a bolt or something, and it doesn't seem like it would be the worst. I don't know. I think any removal in general could help a lot. Like forked bolt's really strong for obvious reasons.
He may also bring in the Grafdigger's Cages. They're good against the combo aspect of Elves, both the Green Sun Zenith and Natural Order.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I feel like that's a not the ideal way to do it for the Delver decks because they don't apply. They're not like a combo deck where they're trying to stop Elves from comboing. I mean, in some ways they are, but in some ways it could just be a dead card because like if James has one of the draws where he's just playing a few Elves and he can ignore his Green Sun, just like do other things.
Right.
I don't feel like you're buying yourself enough time. Like Elves, or what is the min kill turn for Temur? Probably turn 4, maybe 5.
Imagine if you string a whole bunch of bolts together, you could kill with like a Delver on turn 3 or 4. As quickly as you can get out the gates. But
the normal draw is probably more like a turn 5 kill.
I'd imagine so.
It's not like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a deck like Infect would want Grafdigger's Cage against Elves because Infect's optimal kill turn is probably like turn 3, and Grafdigger's Cage slows Elves that they can't have a turn 3 kill.
Right.
Basically,
they're down to basically what you see James do in the last game where he hard casts the Crypt of Behemoth.
Anyway, it looks like they are going to the sideboards. I don't know if Dan's showing off his private collection or what there, but anyway, they've made their sideboard decisions, and we are shuffling up for the second game. So we'll be starting that in just a minute.
With James up the game, we should be seeing Dan taking the play, and hopefully he can have a little bit stronger start, leading off, with a threat or even just a ponder. I don't think the turn 1 into turn brainstorm is at all what you want to be doing. So
Drake, in your opinion, is this a good matchup for the Rug player, or is he a disadvantage? He certainly looked bad last game.
I think Elves has a pretty good matchup against the Temur Delver deck. Most of your threats, you can stop a lot of what they're doing on the ground, so Delver's really their only threat that's really, really strong, being that it's in the air. The mana denial, Wastelands are okay. They were pretty strong last turn, but I actually don't think they're normally that great. You can fetch around them. You play a lot of forests, and your creatures produce mana. So the mana denial strategy, I just don't think is very strong on a Temur, and Elves, even if slowed down a little bit, I think can still kill way faster than Temur can get the damage in.
Yeah. I think that the perfect draw for Elves is a turn 3 kill.
I think maybe they turn 2 with the Gaze Cradle. I think.
Yeah, probably.
I seem to remember watching that happen, but I couldn't tell you. I don't play enough Elves.
I'm sure that involves a Heritage Druid and a Glimpse and just the
Nettle Sentinels for sure. Because once you get Heritage Druid, double Nettle Sentinel, it can be pretty unstoppable with Glimpse.
So if Elves is a good matchup against Rug and probably most of the fair Delver strategies and decks like, I don't know, Shardless or Jund, maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think is its bad or worst matchups?
Reanimator is typically very bad. They can tutor up and put a Elish Norn into play turn 1 or 2, and that seems very hard for Elves.
Probably the end of the game right there.
Right. Yeah. Show and Tell I think is about equally as hard. A lot of the combos that just simply go faster seem very, very difficult for Elves. They have a little bit more resiliency as a combo deck in that they don't have to kill with their combo, but that does make them a little bit slower just, in the combo asymmetry. So, but overall with fair decks, I think it has pretty good matchups. Miracles, though, is a fair deck that I think having, 4 copies of Terminus in the main deck really makes Elves an easy matchup for Miracles, so a bad matchup for Elves. I think just that whole deck in general, and Counterbalance, being able to stop all their 1-drops. They play a very high number of 1-drops. And
sort of that to fuel that what did they used to call it, the elf ball combo, where you just string one into the next. So I know James. I've talked to him. Hung out with him plenty of times. He said he's been playing Elves for at least 4 or 5 years now. So I think he did. He played it back before they had the Craterhoof kill and had to do some of the shenanigans with hard casting and Emrakul. It involved Mirror Entity. There was a combo where you could I think it involved turning Wirewood Symbiote into an elf so that it could return itself to your hand to untap a Priest of Titania, and then you could generate infinite mana by recasting your Wirewood Symbiote and using the mirror entity's ability to turn it into an elf and return it, and you cycle that around and around until you get enough mana to infinitely cast. I think.
Well, with infinite mana, you could just make mirror entity makes all your creatures infinite. Being.
There was that, yeah.
So
I know they ran Emrakul. I'm not. I guess that's just yet another way to kill.
Right.
If you don't, if they have enough blockers or something along those lines.
Interesting enough, Emrakul is still a pretty good card to have in your deck against the show and tell matchups and Hypergenesis, which was a deck way back in the day. You can basically have game against those faster combo decks by simply being able to put in a threat equally as good as the threat they're putting in. So. It was an interesting addition to Elves. I'm kind of sad not to see them have the Emrakul in their deck anymore. I'm a huge fan of Emrakul, but
no, I think Craterhoof definitely gave them the big combo potential win. It's a much faster deck with it, although they no longer have the infinite mana chain. Looks like both of our players took a mulligan this game, so we're gonna see if they keep their 6s. James looks to be at least one land and some number of creatures.
He took a mulligan real quick. I assume there was no lands or all lands. Either way, it looks like the Temur Delver's going down to 5. Which if he's mulliganing and he opens a hand of a good amount of fork bolts or sideboard hates, enough stuff to stop him early, that can be pretty good. But I think being on the play as a Temur Delver deck going down to 5 can be pretty backbreaking.
Yeah, especially if you're still on the Stifle plan.
Right.
A lot of the cards that sort of provide the tempo, but or the delay. You delay your opponent's development, but they don't necessarily deal any damage. Because I guess Temur only has about 12 creatures, right? So they're really riding one creature.
Yeah, all the way to victory.
Yeah,
and just protect the queening with it. Let's see. Can't get a good look at his 5. Looks like there's a brainstorm.
At least a brainstorm and a land, so it's probably keepable at that point.
He's taking the scry. See if he wants that on top. And he does.
Dan keeps. James will also scry since both players mulliganed, and James is going to send it to the bottom. So here we go. Game 2.
Dan Williams going to open with a Tropical Island Pass. Looks like he's probably going for the end of turn brainstorm thing again, which, like I said, is just not really what you want to be doing, but you can't be too picky on a mull to 5. He's got a fetch land. He's going to hold it up. Dan's obviously representing Stifle, so there's no real reason to aggressively go for it. Especially because James's seat, Dan's on a mulligan to 5.
Yeah, you just don't want to play into any possible strengths that your opponent's hand may have. Yeah, that's the volcanic.
Okay.
I guess a side note for any of the viewers, this event being a sort of a startup legacy tour, trying to generate interest in the legacy format, players are allowed up to 10 proxies in their deck. Although, looking over the deck lists, it looks like with the 17 players present, there may only be about 20 proxies between all 17 of them total. So. Yeah. It looks to me like the format is, and there's the Stifle.
Yeah, he gets the Stifle for the first one. See if he has another one.
The format has enough interest that that players are willing to buy in and really develop a legacy collection, which is great. I think. I think what's going on here may help actually foster a real legacy environment.
Legacy is a fun format. People like Legacy. He's going for a Green Suns. I guess we're going to make up for the land drop that just got stifled. Oh, he's going to bolt it. So he's got the 1 mana Stone Rain there. He actually had 2 mana, 2 Stone Rains last turn, so that was very strong.
So we've had some technical difficulty with this video. The camera shut down, although we only lost about 3 minutes of video. So as you can see, not a whole lot has changed. It looks like Dan resolved a Ponder and a Delver on his Ponder and then a Delver on his turn. James fetched a Bayou and Abrupticated, so it looks like he did indeed bring in the Abrupticate. And Dan is in the middle of resolving a Brainstorm right now, perhaps?
No, it looks like it's over.
He just resolved one, and now he's got another fetch land.
But it doesn't look like James has too much going on either. He has a bunch of lands on the table, but still no creatures. Here we go. You get to see him play his first creature, which, interesting enough, isn't an elf. I think you want to resolve that maybe after an elf resolves, so
maybe
you can start getting value
anymore. I know. I see a Guy's Cradle, although at this point it's not producing a whole lot of mana. Well, there's your elf, and a good one at that. If ever there was an elf to try and beat Temur Delver, the one that eats graveyards.
This is very strong against Temur.
Interesting, Dan did not fetch prior to drawing, so whatever he had to put back from that Brainstorm, he must have wanted at least one of the cards.
Or it could just be another Brainstorm, which obviously we see it isn't. But, holding a fetch land up and, brainstorming then cracking it is definitely still a very live play you could have, but you definitely would have done it end of turn.
Or on his upkeep, which regardless, it
Mm-hmm.
looks as though he needed at least one of those cards now. On the mulligan to 5, he's going to be hard pressed to provide enough action.
I mean, he opened pretty strong. Like I said, he managed to land 2 1-mana Stone Rains, which against Elves I feel can be very difficult. Stifle, I feel like they don't play that many fetch lands. I mean, they play Windswept East and Wooded Foothills, but it looks like he total has
9
fetch lands. So that seems pretty high.
9
So maybe
fetch lands,
it's
only,
completely reasonable, but
and only 6 fetchable lands.
yeah.
So not the traditional. No, I guess the normal traditional thought was that you had to have an equal number of fetchable lands for every fetch land.
Well, Delver decks definitely break that too. I mean, you look at a Delver deck; they have far less fetchables than they do fetch lands.
I suppose some of that is mitigated. I guess that was the rule back during Onslaught Standard. Well, there's the Brainstorm you called for.
Yeah.
The Onslaught Standard, it was, and during Zendikar, it was different when you could only fetch the lands and they stayed in a lot of these Delver decks between Daze and Brainstorm. They're able to take the lands that they've already fetched and put them back into their deck to fetch them again, effectively drawing them a card.
Yeah.
Because once you're above 2 or 3 mana, you don't really want any more lands in the Delver decks. So
and they definitely do pay a land drop, but like you said, they just don't need that much mana. It looks like at least a Mongoose went back on top, but it looked like it might have been the second card. So assume the first card must be pretty good here to not want another threat on the table. Although Mongoose is pretty bad in the face of a Deathrite Shaman. He can just start exiling his graveyard, keep the Mongoose off of Threshold, and it can be pretty hard to put more than one card a turn now that he has 2 cards in hand. Getting more than one card in the graveyard a turn.
That threshold. And he only just barely, it looks like exactly 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe there's 8 cards in the graveyard, so so he can with James doesn't have he does have a way to untap. He can even eat 2 cards in a turn with the Deathrite Shaman if he has a second black. He doesn't have an available black
Delver. That's a far better threat. And a Tarmogoyf. These are both good threats. Tarmogoyf not as good in the face of a Deathrite, but still, I think, large enough and hard enough to cut down that it's going to be at least, I think, a 3-4 for the next couple turns. It looks like there's a land in the graveyard, so you might actually be the full 4-5. Yep. Yeah, because we have a Dryad Arbor, so we have a 4-5, the typical size of the 2-drop.
Yeah. Looks like they're using
a die to maintain
D6 to represent, Apologize to the viewers. We do not have a Tarmographic nor a Tarmogoyf die like some of the feeds that you'll see on more prominent.
I don't know. I was watching the footage. It seemed to take them a while to get the Tarmographic up anyway. The Tarmogoyf was dead by the time they finally got it up and running.
Oh, looks like we're
eating things
untapping. Yeah, he exiled the Brainstorm to deal 2 damage, and then picked up his Heritage Druid and recast it. Although that was the entire turn's development. I guess James has nothing else to play.
The draw is real slow here for Elves. He has plenty of mana for when he finds something. That Gaia's Cradle, able to produce 3 mana here. But
now, interesting, the Delver did not flip, which means that when Dan brainstormed, he put back the 2 cards knowing that
the Delver wouldn't flip.
I
mean, it was the Mongoose, so he should have a Nimble Mongoose here in his hand.
Well, that's a lot of creatures to face off against just these 3.
I can't see the edge of the graveyard for Dan seems to be coming off the screen, but it looks like this block, if he does block exile, this looks like it could end up, putting the Nimble Mongoose back down to a 1/1 where the Deathrite profitably blocks it, which can be backbreaking. And knowing that Dan has a Nimble Mongoose in hand, he doesn't have a card he can do at instant speed. Yeah, it looks like it put it down to a 1/1 and, yep.
Now that was
got through.
That was a sort of a no-risk block for James, because if the card Dan drew for turn happened to be an instant that he could then rebuild Threshold, James could always just use his Wirewood Symbiote to pick up the Deathrite Shaman and prevent it, from actually dealing damage and taking damage from the Mongoose. So at this point, the Deathrite Shaman is sort of running away with the graveyard, so I think we're likely to see the Mongoose remain small. And actually now the Tarmogoyf is shrinking too. There's no more sorceries.
So I never really got a chance to talk about the takeouts on Elves' side of the table. And given that how we've seen this game play out, I think that James probably cut some number of at least natural orders and glimpses. I mean, he's been through a fair number of cards, and given he plays 4 of each of those, he's only seen, I think, 1 Green Suns that went and got a Dryad Arbor. I think he might be trying to come to a more fair strategy, given that he can, clog up the ground game. He can get his creatures bigger in 1 or 2 hits, and just one hit him, 2 hit him. He can get enough creatures to go absolutely around the Temur Delver. So I think he probably comes off the combo approach to the matchup. And, especially cards like Natural Order that could pretty easily get dazed with the mana denial strategy. And, that costs you a creature, and that's probably not what you want to be doing.
Now, it is worth noting in James's deck list, he's running the Rurik Thar in the sideboard, which we can only assume he brought in because it's so good against the Delver strategies. But he doesn't actually have a land that produces red mana. So he's dependent on either Green Sun, Zenith, or Natural Ordering for the Rurik Thar, or he has to go through his Virtual Arrangers to produce the red mana if he happens to draw
Deathrite does it as well. But...
I guess Deathrite Challenge. So there's a multitude of ways, but none of them involve a land. So if he actually draws it naturally, there's some scenarios where he would not be able to actually cast the Rurik Thar.
Which, do you think that affects his decision to bring it in, given that you can't actually cast it with any of your lands? Do you think you're
against a deck that's trying to mana deny you so hard? Although I think it's so good that he would bring, if it resolves, it's almost game over against these Delver decks. They're going to use at least 2 spells to get rid of it, which is all of its triggers is 12 damage, and I don't know that the Delver player can.
Looks like we got Tarmogoyf cut down with these 2 Deathrites, just absolutely eating at that Tarmogoyf. Looks like we got it back down to a 2/3.
Yeah, there's only lands and instants now.
The Delver is putting a respectful amount of pressure. He is at 13. That's about 4 hits, but I think the Deathrites being able to do 4 a turn potentially.
Well, and he's been using it to exile creatures to gain life, so he's actually slowed the clock a pretty good deal.
Like I said, I think Elves has the inevitability in this matchup, and so this is not looking super good for Dan unless he picks up a copy of Forked Bolt, maybe Submerge. I don't know, some removal to start picking at these Deathrites. Pithing Needle, actually, interestingly enough, if he brought it in, would be a very awesome draw here against Deathrites. But I can't imagine there's so many targets that there's no real one you want to plant it proactively.
So James attacked with his Heritage Druid, which seems a little strange. I don't understand why he would just
post combat
run it into the face of the Tarmogoyf unless he's got
a Scavenging Ooze.
And he used double Gaia's Cradle, so he's got at least 4 mana floating. He's going to exile all of the graveyards and shrink this Tarmogoyf.
Right.
Wow, that was a pretty tech play right there. I don't think Dan could have seen that one coming.
No, I don't think I would see that one coming either. This Scavenging Ooze we know comes in, but it seems to be a hard one coming, especially if you don't expect it out of the Elf sideboard.
Wow. Yeah, so now with no graveyards, there's never going to be a sizable Tarmogoyf, and also the Nimble Mongoose has no chance at ever thresholding. Now
although for what it's worth, I think he has this turn to bolt the Scavenging Ooze, because it should only have 1 counter, yeah. So if he has a Lightning Bolt here, it'd be pretty strong being able to... although, yeah, there's no land, so as long as he doesn't fetch or anything, he could...
No, actually, that's not true. One of those lands is a Dryad Arbor, so he could always bounce it to the Wirewood, bounce an Elf with the Wirewood Symbiote, untap the Arbor, and use it for green mana in response to a Lightning Bolt. No, I think James had this one. Oh, and there's the Green Sun that would find the Crater Hoof. So Dan packs it in. He knows he's beat, and James takes this game 2-0.